Well, good afternoon, everybody. Robert Phoenix here with the Friday FARcast, running just a tad behind. Just trying to put together some research and some tidbits for us to talk about today. As we do the Friday FARcast over here on the Radio FARcast channel, we also do the Sunday night live stream here and then 15 Minutes of Flame over on the 15 Minutes of Flame channel. And I see some people are showing up. You're getting some of the notices. What's going on? 108 Dragon. Nice to see you here today. And we'll just kind of let things kind of marinate. We'll marinate a little bit. Wait for some peeps to show up. I'll give you a local weather report. Hi, Judy. Nice to see you. We have had a lot of rain, and we're at a flooding stage once again. That's kind of heavy. So we've got that going on, and we have more rain scheduled for today. And Texas is now declaring a state of national emergency based on the floods here in this area, also known as the Hill Country, where I live. Still flipping and flopping in Dallas. You getting a lot of rain up there, Stephen? I mean, we've got more than enough. So if some part of the country wants our rain, hit the like button. Right on. There we go. Thanks, 108. Appreciate that. We have plenty of rain. And when it rains like this, we can't really see what's going on in the sky, what's going on above the sky. Hi, Laura. How are you? And the sky has definitely been a part of the discussion recently. There have been some videos that have been passed back and forth about waves going across the moon. There's also been some speculation that something hit the moon not long ago. I'm sure you guys are switched on and turned on. I've been reading about some of the moon phenomenon. What's going on, Daniel? Nice to see you. So we are living in a really interesting place. We're in an interesting phase right now. And the midterms are just they're creeping up right around the corner. And I have some stuff to share with you about the midterms. This is now I'm sharing this with you because the statistic is really interesting. Now, whether or not this plays out in a way that I think it might play out, it's the statistic that I find fascinating here. So this is from Wyoming, the state of Wyoming. And this is from July of this summer to September of this year. Over 12,000 people have changed their voting party affiliations in the last 2 months in Wyoming. You ready? Here we go. The Wyoming State Secretary of State's office today released data on the number of persons who changed their party affiliation on their voter registration in the weeks before or on the date of the 2018 primary election. 12,509 persons in total changed their party affiliation between July 6th and September 20th. Excuse me, one more, I think. All right, here's how it breaks down. Check this out. 6,057 Democrats changed and registered as Republicans. 4,355 unaffiliated persons changed and registered as Republicans. 744 unaffiliated persons changed and registered as Democrats. 477 members of the Constitution and Libertarian parties changed and registered as Republicans. 430 Republicans changed and registered as Democrats. And 296 persons of various parties changed and registered as unaffiliated. Okay. Those are pretty significant numbers. By the way, county10.com, which is a TV website from Wyoming, has posted the story. Those are significant numbers. So essentially, there were 10,412 people that became registered Republicans in the state of Wyoming. We'll throw in the 477. So roughly 11,000 people became registered Republicans in Wyoming. What does this say? It says that I think there's going to be a slaughter at the polls during the midterms. This is the kind of information that is really salient. There's going to be a slaughter at the polls. I think the country is going to bleed red. And I'm not worrying this because of that. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens because, of course, I believe there's also going to be some irregularities when it comes to voting. I mean, we looked at the charts a couple of weeks ago, and there's going to be some high strain during the night of the election for sure, and even the day. Now, I believe right now on Monday, absentee voting is going to be taking place. So we are already in the election cycle now with Venus retrograde Scorpio. Could we say recount? Are there going to be recounts? Has Soros saved up enough money for the recount fund? I think at first I wasn't sure. Then I began to really feel into it and look at it. I'm like, okay, I think it's going to be a Republican dominated House and Senate. And I also believe that there could be some ground that'll be lost. It may wind up even worse for the Democrats. Now, am I here to cheer on the Republican Party? No, I'm not here to cheer on the Republican Party, but it feels like that this is part of the awakening process. And and people can only here, I'll give you an example, okay? Let's say, for instance, somebody has some understanding about their diet and they realize just what they've been putting into their body is just real crap, and it's got short-term and long-term effects, and they wake up and they're out and they're trying to get something to eat, and they have one option, which is McDonald's. Maybe not the best example, but let's say it's McDonald's. And the other option is Panera. Now, what they really would like is something that would be maybe more paleo, or something that's going to be more rocket fuel for their body. Okay, there's a good chance they're going to go to Panera instead of McDonald's, because at least at Panera they might be able to get a salad with I don't know, broiled chicken. And I feel like this is what's going on. I feel like that based on the choices that people are being given in terms of Panera versus McDonald's, they're moving over to Panera. It's not perfect. It is not a perfect choice, but it represents an awakening, because what we're seeing now, is such an extreme case of, it's almost bordering on a collective madness in terms of what's going on with the Democrats and the progressives. And I think people, I know there's a lot of sentiment out there that people are sheep, people are just fools locked into a trance and they're hypnotized chickens. I don't fully believe that. I think when you sit down and talk with people, you'll find that more people are kind of aware and awake than you give them credit for. And I think it's about time that we start to support this idea notion that people have the understanding and the insight that it takes in order to see behind the veil, go beyond the bullshit, and live their lives from, at the very least, the beginnings of a sovereign perspective. I was at the meeting the other night here for taking the fluoride out of the water, and here's this woman. I don't know her. She's at the meeting. First thing she starts talking about is chemtrails and what's going on in the skies. Boom. She's from Germany, by the way. She's living in a German town. That makes sense. But it's like, okay, here we go. We're dialoguing. We're having a conversation. But there's also lesser versions of that because it's kind of a concentrated, selected environment. But I've had conversations with people randomly. They know to whatever degree that they can figure it out, they know what's going on. So there's an awakening taking place. And I'm sorry, the Democratic Party, the progressives, the CPUSA party, the way that it's being manufactured, and maybe this is part of it. I mean, you have to think about the pincher effect. Maybe they're pushing people over to this other side because, that's really sort of where they want them to go anyway. I mean, it could be another herding mechanism. But again, my position is I'm going to double down on the awakening process for me and you and everybody else. This is where I'm putting my faith in because it's happening. It is happening. And, as long as I have this channel to talk about these things, that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how we are coming online. We're beginning to understand things that are really important about who we are, how we operate. Like we are understanding about our needs on a dietary level. And whether or not you think the paleo or keto or whatever these diets are a bit extreme, maybe that's the case. But we're understanding now at a very, very important level that what we put in our bodies is essential. It's totally essential. What we put in our minds is essential. What we put in our consciousness is essential. That's why people are cutting the cable. They're cutting the cord. They're cutting their connection with mainstream media. Hollywood is dying. It's dying on the vine. This idea that celebrities can become tastemakers, celebrities can not just become tastemakers, but they can advocate and become ambassadors for positions. When I say positions, I'm talking about social positions, advocacy. That's all going away. The power of Hollywood and the power of the icon is dying before our very eyes. Taylor Swift came out and decided that she wanted to support this one candidate. What's his name? Berenson. She puts her support behind this progressive, democratic, and left candidate. And when that happens, his opponent's popularity in the polls goes up 14%. This is indicative of a sea change because icons no longer have the power to sway and influence a certain level of what I would call the mainstream. It's dying. The power is dying. If you go back into like the 70s and the 80s, you would have certain people that were in Hollywood, musicians or actors, actresses, and they had social clout. Warren Beatty had social clout. Paul Newman had social clout. Even though Bob Dylan never really bought into the politics bit, he would still have some social clout. Bruce Springsteen, Jackson Browne, these people had social clout. You listen to their music had a message. Their message was tied to certain ideologies. certain bits and pieces of the social fabric. It's gone. It's all going away. Now, they're trying to kind of reconfigure the star system. And this is what I've been talking about in the shift from the Dionysian to the Apollonian and the propping up of people like LeBron James or Serena Williams or to some extent Colin Kaepernick. These are athletes. So what they're trying to do is reinvest this iconic energy into the athlete versus the performer or the actor. Because that's where things are headed. We're headed into an Apollonian phase. Even though we may be getting into the dimming of the sun and the solar minimum, clearly the attitudes are shifting more towards the Apollonian. We can see this from a dietary perspective. People are moving away from things like gluten and puffy. I mean, clearly there are lots of people out there that still have crappy diets. Not everybody is, has woken up and stepped away from the golden banquet or the golden buffet, right? Isn't that what it's called? Golden corral. And not everybody stepped away from the golden corral. However, that said, more people are. And as we begin to assert here, so let's just look at it. Dietarily, we're wanting to take control of our bodies. We want to put good, clean fuel in our bodies. We don't want a lot of crap clogging up our veins, our arteries. And we know, like there are those of us who are at a point know that we have certain, how shall we say this, foreign agents floating around in our bodies because of the air that we breathe. And there are certain foods that will trigger those foreign agents. And if we stay away from those foods, we can manage those foreign agents. And that's true. That's a truth. I'm a living truth. I'm a living testament to that truth. So we're taking control of our bodies. We're taking control of what we take in consciously. Cut the cord. Boom, done. Not going to watch this anymore. I'm going to turn the garbage off. There's nothing to watch anyway. Nothing to see here. Move on. Because when you check in, what's happening as we get clearer, right? As we get clearer, and as we become more awake and more aware, guess what happens? Not just the symbols. I'll give you an example here. And then I'm going to give you an example of something I picked up on. And then we're going to give you an example of it's beyond hidden in plain sight anymore. It's blatantly hidden in plain sight. Okay. So there's a public service commercial. And it's the main, it doesn't star, but the guy who is the person who is doing the public service, his name is John Cena. And John Cena is known as a big-time wrestler. I guess he was a hero, a villain hero. And then John Cena has had a very strong connection to the military. He looks the part of being one of those crew-cut topped Americans from another day and time, right? So in this video, this public service video, he's walking down the street and he's talking about what it means to be an American and what it means to be a patriot. And he's talking about love and tolerance. And as he's walking, right to you, he's walking down a street. What do you see? Well, one of the things you see, first of all, is a woman just off to the side, in a burqa. Hello, burqa woman. Okay, all right, John Cena, you're telling us that to be an American is to be loving, to accept people, to be tolerant. Okay, you're an all-American guy. Yeah, all right. Oh, there's a woman with a burqa. Oh, I guess we should accept her too. Okay. All right, John Cena says it's okay. He says it's okay, we should accept her. Then what do we see? Well, then we see these two women who are together, and this is the part of the commercial that gets me. Look, they're deaf mutes, and so they're signing, right? And they kind of look like they're lovers. So they're getting the twofer. They're getting the two women, and one of them is black and one of them is white. That's a threefer right there. You got the black and the white, you've got the two women, and you have people that are disabled. That's a lot. There was a lot of thought that went into staging that little vignette, right? Then, as he walks past the woman in the burqa, and then there behind him is a rainbow colored flag. This is all within the space of 30 seconds. A lot of thought really went into this commercial. A lot of thought on their end. But if you watch it, you go, oh, wow, look at what's going on here. They're trying to get into the consciousness of the mainstream with somebody who's iconic, like John Cena, who represents wrestling, troops, America, masculinity. And he talks about how it's important to be caring, loving, tolerant, because this is part of being an American, part of being a patriot. And you zoom out and you go, oh, okay, wow, gee, I'm going to accept these things because John Cena has clicked in and aligned with all these things that are symbolic to me about what it is to be an American. This is how the game works. You watch the commercial and you look at it and go, try better next time. Try better next time. Because that didn't work really well. But for some people, they'll go, okay. And they may not even really register the commercial. They may watch it. But somewhere inside them, that commercial will register. And they may have an idea or a belief. You see, this is why it's important to pay attention. Because those things will no longer hold power or sway over us if we pay attention. Is it a pain in the ass to pay attention? Absolutely. But I'd rather pay attention than check out. And I don't even think we have the luxury of checking out anymore. Okay, so let's go next step. If that's the case now, and we're waking up to a degree that we can see these things, which we can, where are the quote unquote controllers of the mainstream driven matrix, the MDM? Where are they going? Are they going to become more covert or are they going to go more overt? Well, I'll tell you right now, they're going more overt. They're going more overt. This character just crossed my screen. I don't know if you have run into her, but her name is Poppy. Her name is Poppy. And Poppy was an internet explosion. She was a huge YouTube star, and she's very, very stylish. I wish I could put this in the chat. I don't know if I can't put things in, but I'm reading off of Vigilant Citizen. He just posted this yesterday. And you can go there, check this out, The Disturbing Meaning of Poppy's Time is Up. So he talks about the evolution of Poppy as a star. So she came onto YouTube in 2015 with hundreds of bizarre, surrealist, hypnotic videos. So somebody's behind Poppy. And he did a piece called That Poppy, the YouTube star under Illuminati mind control. Now, here's what's really interesting. She just signed a deal with Island Records. Island Records, I don't know if Chris Blackwell still owns Island Records or not. I think he sold Island. But Island Records has a very nefarious kind of history. Chris Blackwell started Island Records, and they were the record company that put out Bob Marley's records. So Bob Marley and Chris Blackwell are tied together. The evolution of Bob Marley and Chris Blackwell's record company, Island Records, are tied together. Now Lee Perry, who's produced the Wailers and is just, I'm not sure if Lee Perry is still alive. Lee Scratch Perry is just a complete and utter loon. Amazingly talented, but an absolute loon. He accused Chris Blackwell of killing Bob Marley for his publishing rights. Maybe. Could be. He also accused Chris Blackwell of being a vampire and basically living off of other people's blood. Now, when he said this, when Lee Perry said this maybe 15, 20 years ago, maybe longer than that, 25 years ago, you hear it and go, wow, well, that's unusual. And Lee Perry is so out there, right, that you would think that maybe, just maybe, he's exaggerating just a little bit. In today's climate, what people have found out and what is really just below the surface of the mainstream, that kind of very blatant accusation may not sound so surreal or ridiculous. Anyway, I'm just giving you a little bit of background on Island Records. I don't think Chris Blackwell owns Island. I think he sold it. Nonetheless, Poppy is on Island Records. And there's a picture here of her. There's a awards called the Streamies, the Streamy Awards, and it's for award-winning YouTubers. And she won an award, and at the award ceremony, she's being pulled around in a plexiglass box like she's a slave. And her handler is Titanic Sinclair. Okay. So, of course, Sinclair is St. Clair, which has resonance with the Knights Templar and the early founders of Freemasonry. And Titanic, of course, is the Titanic. We know that's not his name, but certainly it's symbolic. Now, what's interesting about this Poppy is that she has come right out and basically said in her music and her videos that she is a mind-controlled slave. That she is a mind-controlled slave. And she is a virus. She's a mind virus to create more mind-controlled slaves. So this is beyond hidden in plain sight, way beyond it. This is like 2 or 3 levels above hidden in plain sight. This is advanced programming. One of my favorite movies is Glengarry Glen Ross. And it is a brutal movie to watch. It is a brutally honest movie to watch. It might be one of the most difficult movies to actually sit down and witness for a number of reasons. Number one, because Al Pacino's character, who's the most successful character in the movie, is also the most deviant. Jack Lemmon's character, who has the most humanity in the movie, is the most pathetic. The guys who are trying to do right by Jack Lemmon and do right by the business, one of the characters played by Ed Harris, they're basically considered weak. It's a fascinating movie, fascinating character study. Al Pacino's character is involved in a long close of a deal for real estate that is worth nothing. And he's working on Jonathan, what's his name? The guy who looks like the Pope. Jonathan Pryce. He's working on Jonathan Pryce. And what he's doing as he's working on him, he's doing this in a couple of different ways. Number one, he's appealing to his sense of power and powerlessness, meaning that if he can make a decision without his wife, without consulting his wife, he's taking his power back inside of the relationship. That's number one. Number two, he's doing something that is absolutely brilliant. It's what some of the best salespeople do. And he is basically telling him that he's working on his clothes with him. He reveals that that's exactly what he's doing. And so what happens with Jonathan Pryce? Or what happens with anybody in that moment? Once it's revealed that that's what is being taken, it's what's happening, taking place, you let your guard down. Oh, they admitted the truth. They admitted, of course, what they've done here is they've actually confirmed my suspicions. Well, that's part of the trick, you see. This is what we call the revelation of the method. And so by exposing something and giving somebody a portion of the truth, they believe that they have the whole enchilada when they only really have a bite or two. And then through that methodology now, he has deeper buy-in with Jonathan Pryce's character. So he's appealed to his vanity, his sense of powerlessness, a way to control or regain his power, and the fact that theoretically he was honest and upfront with him, which is not the case at all. So when we see Poppy, what are we seeing here? We're seeing the revelation of the method on steroids. Because she is saying, essentially, that she is a mind-controlled slave. She's an MK Ultra mind control slave. And her video that is now emerging, that this is her big video, her new video is called Time is Up. Time is Up. And the imagery is about her being connected to electrodes in her head. She's literally being mind controlled. And she's not only being mind controlled, she's being monitored by a handler. The handler in this case is played by Diplo, who has such a bad learning disability, he can barely read. He's like super dyslexic, but he's a hell of a producer, right? So now we have the surveillance state, we have mind control. Here are the lyrics. In the factory, in the sterile place where they made me, I woke up alone, dizzy from the programming. Have I been wiped again? Oh my God, I don't even know. Then she describes where she is. It's a mystery. Everyone around me is so busy. Is this my home? Am I your prisoner or your deliverer? Oh my God. You don't even know about that. So then in the video, she feeds these pills to her followers. And the followers start to have zeros and ones cast upon their face. So here's the second verse of the song. Exponentially every day, I'm growing my memory. You wouldn't believe. Your life is meaningless. You're just like cockroaches. Extermination's your only hope. Human history, pollution, in overcrowded cities, that's your legacy. But don't look so depressed. You'll soon be nothingness. Oh my God, you don't even know. So this is part of the Time's Up piece that's associated with this. You don't even know your time is up. You know, this does kind of conform to the whole Georgia Guidestone thing, and how, you know, we are nothing but bugs on the planet that need to be exterminated, wiped out, so that the super powerful and elite can take over and run this planet the way they wanted to, with all their slap happy robots and a couple 100,000 loose generators. Because if you take away all the loose generators, they got nothing else to feed off of, right? So this is what's happening now, because we are waking up. You see, I'm sharing this to you in context, because as we awaken, as we become more aware of what's going on, we're able to see their dumb little public service announcement with John Cena, you know, and how pathetic it is to try to wrap our heads around just accepting these things, because that's what a good American does, and that's what John Cena says. Now they're coming at us, and we're going to be hit. We're going to be at full force now with satanic imagery, desolation imagery, desecration imagery. imagery that we are powerless, mindless, subservient, servile, slave-like. Get ready for it. It's coming. It is coming. And in fact, Poppy says, it's already here. The time is up. Get ready. You're going to meet your next level programming, and I am your programmer. Excuse me. I am programmed, and I am programming you. Now, this has been what's happening for years. Go back to the 60s with Tavistock, and you look at what was going on with the Beatles and the Stones. At least the Beatles and the Stones made halfway decent music. You can at least wrap your head around that. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant may have been channeling Aleister Crowley and who knows what else. But I sure like some of their music. I'm not sure I can say the same for Poppy, okay? Or anybody else, or Taylor Swift or Ariana Grande. I mean, these are the new icons. You see, these are the new archetypes. And they are not going to operate in the same way, shape, and fashion as the icons of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s. There was, in some ways, earnestness. You know, when somebody would talk about the environment back in the 70s, let's say it was Jane Fonda talking about the environment in the 70s. There was an earnestness there. When they talked about 3 Mile Island, there was an earnestness. There's nothing earnest about what's going to take place. Nothing earnest. It is dark. It is cynical. It is appealing to a certain mindset that thinks it's being truthful and honest, hence the revelation of the method. So right now, this today's topic is about being on the pivot. This is where we are. We're on the point of the pivot. We see now this pivot from one series of cultural markers and milestones and people that have theoretically represented them to a new set of cultural markers, milestones, and people that will represent the people like Poppy, who we don't even know if she's a human, is she an android, is she a girl, is she a boy, creating a sense of confusion, right? Is she age worthy to have sex with? Is she older than that? I mean, well, who knows, right? I mean, we don't know. That's part of it. It's part of the unknowing piece. It's part of the unknowing. So, but this is what's coming, and it's coming because we're waking up, and we're seeing things now, right? We're seeing things in ways that we haven't seen before, and this goes back to what we've been talking about this whole week. You know, and this has to do with the fact that we're seeing things exposed before our very eyes. My God, this thing with Khashoggi never happened before. And if it did, it certainly didn't get any media coverage. I mean, clearly, things like this have happened before. You know, I mean, there are journalists who have been tortured. I was about to tell you a story, but I'm not going to do it. All right, I'll tell you the story. Okay, and this has to do with a journalist and torture and death. So this was 2000 and what 2006, 2006, and it's probably late 2006. Right around this time, I was producing and promoting a concert in California, Grace Cathedral, big, beautiful, massive, medieval style church in Nob Hill, right at the top of Nob Hill. Grace Cathedral, fantastic, fantastic cathedral. Ambient. Right across from it, the Masonic Theater. Yeah, so you had this big church and this big, I mean, this is like the theater in San Francisco, that theater, that lodge is a massive theater too. I think it's called the Masonic Auditorium. But I believe it's also a working lodge as well. I've seen concerts there at that place. Dark vibe. But the concerts were good. Saw Lorena McKennitt. Caetano Velosa. Anyway, I produced this concert with Paul Horn, the late Paul Horn. God bless him. Great, 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 great saxophone and flute player. Super talented. Well, most famous for his Inside the Taj Mahal recording, inside the Great Pyramid recordings. Well, we got him inside Grace Cathedral. He did a wonderful night of ambient music with his horns and flutes and layering and looping and all that stuff. Anyway, in the run up and the promotion, advertising, marketing, everything I was doing to make this concert a success, I got an email from a publicist, and I don't know how she got my email address, but it was a publicist, and there was this journalist, Daniel Pearl, who was theoretically killed I think it was one of the first ISIS sort of killings in the Middle East. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that was it. Anyway, he was a journalist, and I got an email from this publicist that wanted me to take a few moments of silence before the concert to honor Danny Pearl. And his wife was involved with this and wanted people to do it in all these events. I said no. The publicist was kind of shocked that I said no. It's like, nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. No. We're already giving some of this money away to some kids in Africa. I'm doing my part. She was shocked, though. Absolutely shocked. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that story with you. So as we wake up now, we're going to see more and more of these things, right? So last week we saw this whole thing with Khashoggi. My God, it's incredible. We're still witnessing it, trying to figure out where the fallout is going to land. It's like spinning the wheel, right? Oh, where's this thing going to go? It's fascinating stuff. We're seeing this live before our very eyes, or maybe not live, but we're seeing the fallout from it. And this goes into this place where things are being revealed all the time now. Every single day is a revelation. Some of them are kind of hard to believe. And some of them are, well, at the very least, interesting and probably make some sense, even though it might be a bit surreal and a bit dark. But bringing this back to what I shared at the beginning, which were the numbers of people that are in Wyoming that are converting from Democrat to Republican. I believe those numbers are symbolic of the awakening. Now, remember, you may only get a choice between McDonald's and Panera, and maybe Panera is a little bit better than McDonald's. And this is why the choice is taking place in that way. Preferably, I'd love to see a third party sort of come out where the disaffected of one side and disaffected the other side, who have sort of commonality, that pull away from sort of the corporate side of the Republican Party and then the complete and utter insanity of the lefts, and the Democrats could form their own party. That would be a really interesting thing. And that might be somewhere where this is all headed in the future. So instead of just getting Panera and McDonald's, you might get Panera, McDonald's, and then this other cool place, which is not a chain. It is not a corporate establishment. It might be that other cool place in a town where all of a sudden you find out everything is grass-fed and organic, and less on the gluten-y, weedy side of things and more in the lean and clean and protein side of things. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, man, this place is here. This place exists. I'm going here. This is where I'm going. Maybe one of these days we'll get to that third option. May not be that far, but right now this is what's happening. And even though people are, metaphorically going over to Panera, that's where the awakening is taking place. Because what's happening is we're witnessing, again, whether or not you want to buy into the two-party thing or not, take the two-party thing out of it. We're witnessing modes and types of behavior. This is what's going on. And we're looking at a certain mode and type of behavior. We're going, what is that? Why are these people doing this? You know, why are they so intent on destruction, destroying people's lives, destroying the infrastructure, destroying a product? Why are they doing that? There must be something really imbalanced about who they are and what they're doing. This is what's happening. People are stepping back because it's gone too far. It's gone so far that you can't even sit down and have a discussion over the holidays. With the holidays coming up, and you've got people on the left that are saying, yeah, like that Google meeting, when you go home for the holidays, use metaphors. It's like, use word language. Use some word language. Do a little abracadabra on them and show them how smart you are and how dumb they are. You do that, but don't back down. In fact, you should walk out of your family if you disagree with them and never come back. People are sitting around scratching their heads. What the hell's going on here? Like, on some level, I get it, right? I mean, Jesus says you should leave your family. To some extent, that's right. That's true. But it's not right and true over some meaningless kind of directive that some tech dork at Google is suggesting that you do. These are not the moral fulcrums of our time. They're just not. Okay. So this is what's going on. I just want to continue from yesterday's thread. I mean, this is a really kind of amazing time to be alive, to be quite honest with you. Now, shit may happen. We might stare down a war with China. We might stare down a war with Russia. That could be the case. That could absolutely be the case. And I would not be surprised if it happened. And if it did happen, do your best to be prepared. But if it does look like it's going to happen, guess what? That gives us an opportunity. You see, that gives us an opportunity to practice something pretty significant on an energetic level from a collective position. There's no reason why we can't stop a war. There's no reason why we can't. If we decided to band together in a moment of crisis and all have sort of the right frequency that we were attuned to, or the right vibration we were attuned to, with the right intention, the right time, we could stop a war. And that might be part of the process. That might be part of our growing up process. You see, now we have to grow up. We have to grow up. It's not this again, I can't stress enough what an important time this is, because it's not just growing up in terms of the world. And trust me, we're all going through our lessons with that. And some of us may be ahead of others. Okay. I know I'm not claiming to be one of the ones that are ahead of the others, but that's just one version of it. That's one version. I'm a firm believer that nobody's going to come and save us. There are really no white hats. Although I do have a white hat. Should I put it on? I have a white hat. Here we go. I'm a white hat right now. All right, here we go. Here's my white hat. I'm here to save you. I've got a white hat. No, there are no white hats. It's up to us. And this is the time where we've got to stand up, right? Take care of ourselves, take care of one another. I can't stress that enough. But you can't take care of another person until you really start taking care of yourself. And I know a lot of you out there are turning corners on taking care of yourselves. And I'm right there with you, doing my best too. Take care of so we can take care of other people when we do that. You know, when you're in the airplane, they say put the oxygen mask on first and then put it on your kid. Whether or not they work or not, who cares? It's the thought that matters. It's the intention that counts. So this is where we are. This is a powerful time to be alive. It's a powerful time in terms of personal responsibility. It's a powerful time in terms of if we are confronted with a crisis. And crises happen all the time. They happen in our personal lives. People die, we lose jobs, marriages break up, pets go off missing and never to return. You know, there can be crises, and there can be a crisis in the world. And I'm telling you, as I sit here right now, we are much better prepared to deal with a crisis than we were in 2008, 2009, when we had a significant financial crisis. Psychologically, spiritually, we're much better off. I don't know about physical preparedness. I don't go down into your basements. I don't know what you've got in your homes. I don't know what you've got under your mattresses. But I can tell you right now, psychologically, spiritually, we are much more better prepared to face a crisis than we were in 2008, 2009, which was the last great crisis we had, theoretically. And maybe that's part of being here. Maybe that's part of the test and how we respond to the crisis and how we can grow through that crisis. We may have to face it. But I guarantee you won't face it alone, because there are other people who are with you, who are going through it, and who can be switched on in a moment's notice. Your heroes emerge during crises. Cowards do too. But I'm looking for the heroic side of these things. So heroes emerge during the times of crisis. It's quite possible. And there's a hero in each and every one of you in your own way. You've all done something mildly or perhaps drastically heroic in your life. And if you haven't, there's still time yet. And I'm not banking on the culture of the economy of being a hero, because, well, it's a little egoic. But at the same time, it also represents a part of ourselves that goes on and transcends who we think we are. And I think that's the term that we've established. I believe it comes from what? Heru, right? Hero comes from Heru, one of the creator gods. That's where we get the term from, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check in with you people in the chat room. Let's see what's going on in there today. What do we have? Treating animals is good for us. Yes, absolutely. Don't eat garbage. Bad food, bad energy food. Yeah. What about plant food produced by slave labor? Most of it. What can you do? Try to grow your own food. Bless the food when you eat it. Yeah. Bless the people that help grow the food. Become a breatharian. I don't know. Take responsibility for it. What about exploited Mexicans who grow your food? Are they exploited? They're getting paid for what they do. It's probably a lot better than what's going on in Mexico. And it takes about 1 or 2 generations, and next thing you know, they're not exploited. I'll give you a story. Let me give you a story about an exploited Mexican, okay? One day I was hitchhiking in California, and I got picked up by a very, very indigenous guy from Mexico. Probably had Yaqui blood, or he definitely had indigenous blood, from Mexico. Picks me up in a truck. He started off working in picking fruit, and he stopped picking fruit. And then the next thing he did is he decided that he was going to trim trees. He became a tree trimmer. And he noticed that the eucalyptus trees had a lot of these eucalyptus seeds. and nobody was using them. And so he started to harvest the eucalyptus seeds. And he began to sell the eucalyptus seeds to people who were using those seeds for oils. And he began to make significant money doing this. And as a result of this, he and his brother now have 2 tree farms in the Central Valley. Okay, 2 tree farms in the Central Valley. That they are now growing trees so that they can harvest fruit from those trees. And this is where he started off. He started off as a guy just picking fruit. Was he exploited? Maybe. Was he making a wage? Yes. Was it a great wage? No. Was it better than the wage in Mexico? Yes. Could he go home at night without his kids if they were here being threatened or killed by drug lords and drug gangs? Yeah, probably. Probably a pretty good chance of that. Did he have a better shot at a life going through what all quote unquote immigrants or migrants go through at some point? Everybody who comes to this country has to get shit jobs. Almost everybody, unless you're working in, I don't know, computers and programming. I had a story a few weeks ago. Last Friday, I was talking about the guys, women perhaps, mostly men, who come into New York and have to drive taxis and do Uber, and they're killing themselves because it's the equivalent of a shit job. Okay, you come here, you come to a new place, you pretty much wind up working a shit job. And when you work a shit job, guess what? You're exploited on some level. But then you have an opportunity to do something different. And that's what separates this country from a lot of other countries. Because that guy who came here and started picking fruit and veggies, probably a pretty good chance in Mexico, he's still picking fruit and veggies, or he might be dead. In this country, picking fruit, picking veggies, like temporary exploitation. Now he's trimming trees. Now he's like got eucalyptus seeds, creating oil, and he and his brother have tree farms in the Central Valley. So I'm going to sit here and kind of stand up for the country in that way. That this man had an opportunity to do that. He had an opportunity. It was a great ride. I learned a lot from that guy. He was a big time Christian. Tell me God bless when I got out of the car. Right? It's true. Americans don't want to do it. No, this is what happens. This is what happens. And by the way, those people who are quote unquote exploited in the next 10 years, they won't have the opportunity to be exploited because robots are going to take over their jobs. People don't understand that. They don't understand what's happening with the AI explosion. Just don't. You know, look, I got a lot of sympathy for people that live in Mexico. I live in an area that is rich in having really strong intercultural ties in Texas between German families and Mexican families. I'm kind of new to the area, but I watch it, and there's no friction here. There's none. People understand it. They understand the game. Here's the problem. The problem is the rate of assimilation. That is the issue. That is the biggest issue, I believe, with immigration. It is the rate of assimilation. But the people that are quote unquote exploited, 10 years from now, they won't have the luxury to be exploited because they'll have machines. They've already figured out how to harvest strawberries robotically. Okay. It's happening. It's through a combination of genetically modified strawberries, which can take a certain amount of bruising, and also the technology that's there to remove them. Everybody's supposed to be dead by Pluto, of course, according to Rothschild plan. You know what? So fuck the Rothschilds, okay? Fuck the Rothschilds and fuck their plan, right? Just because they're the Rothschilds and that's their plan, are we just gonna like say, oh well, that's their plan, and there's Agenda 2030, and there's the Georgia Guidestones? It's like fuck that bullshit, right? That's what I think. My father started at the bottom. He had a third grade education. Now his kids have post-grad education, have professional jobs. That's the way it's supposed to work. That is the way it's supposed to work. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it's supposed to work. McDonald's was never supposed to be a full-time career job. It's not a career path. It's not, unless you want to be in management with McDonald's. It's supposed to be a temporary place. And you move up, and you move up, and you move up. Have you seen the population we're supposed to be at in 7 years? No, I have not. Conscious people like ourselves need to set up communities outside of. I would agree with that, Ani. I would totally agree with that. I think it's going to happen. We'll have our little islands. I think it's going to happen. Polio outbreak is the new thing. Yeah, we've got new cases of polio. LA's got typhus. This is happening. Unchecked migration. And they just open the floodgates. Let's go. Let's go. I like hearing more of the success empowerment stories. Yeah, we've got to get out of it. We have to. We absolutely. I'll give you another one. I had a neighbor in California. Great guy. I've told this story before. Arturo. It's not all from Gardasil. We've got other things going on. The typhus stuff is not from Gardasil. And LA's got a huge homeless problem. No one succeeds in the victim trap. Absolutely. I think that's part of the awakening. I mean, we're looking at what's going on the quote unquote left side. That's just that's just a terminology we have to describe it. But it's not very empowering at all. It talks about empowering, but it's really disempowering. I was watching this commercial, and it was about this woman who was learning how to run her own finances. And it was and she gets to be independent, and it's like a little pat on the head. It was the most condescending fucking commercial I've seen in a long time. It's like, oh, look, you get to be independent. You get to grow up like all the rest of us. I mean, it was so disempowering. And this is supposed to be a culture of empowerment in that way. If I was a woman, I would have thrown a brick at the television. What's going on, Rob? Both left and right are disempowering. Codependency on government. I would say yes, okay? I would say yes to some extent. But the left has a much greater dependency on government programs. The right, theoretically, is about less government and less spending and more about people being self-determined and running their lives. Unfortunately, for the right, they are so up the ass of the military-industrial complex and this whole idea around the war in the Middle East and this notion of patriotism that is wound up around that there is some dependence on that level. That's how people on the right are hooked in. That's how people on the right are hooked in. But I would say by and large, if you had to choose one, I would say try to be the one that's more interdependent and self-dependent than the other. All right, I'm going to tell you the story about this guy, Arturo. Great guy, wonderful guy, super guy. He had a ranch. He had a ranch in Mexico, fully functioning ranch, cattle, you name it, grew food, wonderful. Guess what happens? NAFTA happens. And as soon as NAFTA got kicked in, all the prices and all the stuff that he would bought for his farm went up. Just raised the prices. Feed, fertilizer, you name it, up. Guess what happens? He can't afford it anymore. Can't afford it. They priced him right out of his farm, and the multinationals basically got his ranch pennies on the dollar. Moves his family to Chicago and winds up becoming a freaking janitor in Chicago. His wife is so traumatized that she won't even begin to learn English because of what happened. And he has to because he has a job. He has a job. That's his family. That's his job. And he goes from Chicago and moves to California, and he becomes a handyman. and he starts to work on houses, and he actually winds up buying a house, right? He buys a house in Vallejo. It's not the best neighborhood, but he's got a wife, he's got kids, he's got grandkids. This man had dignity. Can you imagine? Could you imagine having a ranch? Like, that's like one of the coolest things people really could aspire towards in a lot of ways, because you have the land. Land is fertile. You can do things with it. You can grow things on it. You can raise things. And in a place like Mexico, man, that is like you're like getting, up to the top of the food chain. And all of a sudden you got nothing, because these fucking internationalists come in and change everything. And now he's got nothing, and he goes to the United States and he's cleaning toilets. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's a really significant fall from grace. And this dude had, moxie, wherewithal, staying power, and he stayed in the game, and he navigated his family through. And he's a homeowner, and he's got his own repair business, and I have a ton of respect for people from Mexico. I just have so much respect for them because of how I've grown up with them and how I've seen them deal with their lives. So to me, it's a difficult story because of what happened to him, but in the end, he was on his own hero's journey, right? Absolutely. Designer narratives, oligarchy, monarchy, political, Abrahamic rose, on and on and on. Yeah, sure, absolutely, sure. They are right. Yeah, but at the same time, here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. We're not screwed. We're not screwed. Here's the deal. We are the center of the universe, but we're not. Right? We are the center of the universe, but we're not the center. That's the paradox. We live in a paradoxical universe. So we have these systems, but we're not the systems. But we're living in the system, but we understand the system is false. So somewhere in here, there's a dance. And it's not either or, it's not one or the other. Because that's where we are. And at some point, can we transcend the system? Sure, absolutely. We're not quite there yet. We're getting there, though. We're absolutely getting there. And I think it's important to gauge where we are so that we can continue to springboard and get to the next level. The way things are is screwed, but things kind of suck already. Well, that's your choice. Your choice. You can see that things are screwed and that we're screwed and they suck. Yeah, they might suck, but I'm telling you, things are deconstructing. They are deconstructing before your very eyes. So even your belief systems can be deconstructed, and how you feel about the world, and how you feel about your role in it, and how you feel about your role in the system. They can be deconstructed as well. It's all part of the game. It's all up for reassembling. Okay? There you go. Absolutely. The dance is whose God is greater. Frequency is well, there is a marketplace, isn't there, for that? Dark night of the soul for the US. No doubt. No doubt. These are very intense times, because this thing that we've created, or has been created, has been fake created, because there's a lot of different ways we can go here, right? Well, the lease is coming up for renewal because the United States is going through its Pluto return. And that Pluto is at 26 Capricorn. And we're going to hit the Pluto return for the United States. And that will be, a time where we're going to have to really look at. If we really want to go with the nationalist trip or the country trip, for it to be really successful, for America to be really great again, we do have to come to some kind of reckoning with the crap that we've done in the world. For all the power, for all the responsibility that we have, there has to be some reckoning for it. And I'll tell you, we're the ones that are going to have to take care of it, because we're the ones that are becoming aware and awake. And it's not the perpetrators. It's not the people behind the curtain. It's not the Zog influence government. Yeah, they're the ones that have been running the show, but they've been running the show so for this moment that we can wake the fuck up, okay? That's it. we can wake up. Yeah, there are things we have to come to terms with. Here's the thing that we have to come to terms with. The thing we have to come to terms with is the fact that we let people take over and run the show. That's what we have to come to terms with. That's the big piece. That at some point we handed it over to people that said that they had our best interests at heart, that they were going to represent us. And most of us were either too traumatized, too busy, whatever, to pay attention. And now people are starting to pay attention. That's what's going on. People are starting to pay attention. Yeah. So equicentric American experience, Pluto returned collectively in 20. That's right, 2022. That's when it goes back to where it was. And I'll tell you right now, it won't just be Americans, it'll be the world. Because the world is tied to America. The world is tied to America through the money system, through the petrodollar, through treasury bills, right? T-bills, foreign exchanges, foreign markets. So when we go through a Pluto return, guess what? The world goes through its Pluto return as well. Yep, absolutely. Don't you think reality is really an illusion? It isn't, it isn't. It isn't, it isn't. I'll tell you what, you can test if reality is an illusion, okay? If you have a gun, go take a gun, go out somewhere and shoot somebody that you don't know. Let's see how much of an illusion reality is at that point. Guess what'll happen? You'll be apprehended, maybe you'll be shot yourself, you'll wind up in jail, and maybe there you'll get in touch with reality as an illusion. So to that extent, reality is not an illusion. The reality is a high stakes game in a lot of ways. But in other ways, it is totally an illusion, right? It's part of what we're talking about here. It's talking about the paradox of life. On one level, yeah, things count. Things matter here. What you do here counts. How you make choices, how you treat people. These are all really, really important issues. You basically can move on based on that. And you can raise your vibration by the quality of choices that you make. That part is real. The part that's not real is the bullshit in the world, right? Like in a lot of ways, again, it's like, what are laws? Laws are nothing. Laws are nothing. The only time laws are meaningful is that if there's somebody there to, guess what, enforce the law. Otherwise, there's no meaning to any law at all. There's none. And if you're smart enough and you have enough diligence, you can like unhook yourself from that system too. Although good luck. That'll take you a couple of years of your life, but if you want to, you can reclaim your name, you do all that stuff. Because when you do, you find it's all an illusion to that degree in terms of laws. Because at that point, they can't enforce the law to some extent, large extent. They can pick you up off the streets, right? Disappear you, but you might have you might be able to do your thing in court, be okay with it. So the illusion part is, news, culture, the star system. I mean, to me, that's all Maya. That's all Maya, and we're seeing that now. That part is becoming very, very clear to us. And when that part becomes clear, we get to redefine what we think is quote unquote real. Okay. Yeah. Hello from Belgium. How we treat animals, eat them equals disease. There you go. You can always become a breatharian. Anybody ever try to become a breatharian? Anybody? I know somebody who did. They really went for it. They did their best. Not to say you can't. Don't get me wrong. Probably can. She gave her best. Reportedly, some are eating humans on this planet. I wouldn't have, of course, the abduction stuff. Breatharian. Haha. Breathiarian. There we go. That's me, the breathiarian. I'm told I'm full of hot air. That's good. I like that. I resign that I can never be clean. There you go. Look, you can do whatever you want. You can have whatever kind of belief system you want. Sometimes, full on white flag surrender is a really, really good thing to do. Well, full on white flag surrender can be very, very powerful and profound if you do it in the right attitude and come from the right place. I firmly, firmly, firmly would endorse that in the right moment in time. Okay, got a little fired up here today, huh? A little bit. Was there anything else I wanted to go over today? I think there was something else I wanted to bring up. Let me just check my news. I was going to talk about this shooting in Crimea at the college, which looks very legit, by the way. But I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. What else? Is there anything else I want to talk about? Bezos keeping quiet on Khashoggi's disappearance. Yeah, I don't know. Jeff Bezos, is that guy human? If there's somebody who's an alien, I think it's Jeff Bezos. That's what I think. I think he's part of some program. Because a guy like Jeff Bezos, you can't do business at that level unless you are picked and chosen. I believe he's a Capricorn, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's an alien. That's what I think. He's not your 90s Bezos. No, he's not. This is a different dude, right? Like he's had some kind of infusion or something. Or maybe he's just a different Bezos. But you don't get to play at that level unless you have a permission slip, right? He's got a permission slip. Let's see if we can find Jeff Bezos' chart. Let's see if it's online. Remember one time, a long time ago, I tried to find it. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Come on. Okay. All right. So I'm going to Astro Theme. In many instances, Astro Theme will not have the ascendant. They don't always have the time of birth. But let's check it out. Let's see what we got. 11264. We know he's a Capricorn. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a time. Believe we have a time. So Jeff Bezos is a Aries rising. 20 degrees Aries. He's got Jupiter in Aries. His part of fortune's in Pisces. His midheaven is at 11 cap. His sun is at 21 cap. So he's got Pluto going over his sun here. This should be a very interesting time with Jeff Bezos. He'll either become king of the world or he'll die with Pluto going over his ascendant, right? He has Mars conjunct his sun. So he's got a Mars-Sun conjunction in Capricorn. My Saturn is right on his midheaven. He should hire me to be his spiritual advisor. And then he's got Mercury. This guy's loaded, locked and loaded with Capricorn moon and 29 Sag. He's part of that Uranus-Pluto conjunction in the 60s. And he has both Uranus and Pluto trining his midheaven. And those are in his, let's see, what house is that? Looks like his 6th house. Let me just see here. His descendant is at 20 Aries. So 20 Libra is his descendant. And looks like his 5th house. 5th house. And then he's got Venus and Saturn in Aquarius, 11th house. Hello, social networking. Hello, Amazon Marketplace. So he actually has a chart that That fits him in his business model. Let's see. He's got a Neptune square going on. Neptune square Saturn and a Neptune square Venus. I would say that even though he has all the aspects of ambition and Capricornian ascent, when you get into that Neptune square to Saturn, you're dealing with some interesting aspects around power and people that put you in power, and all is not what it seems to be. That's what I'm getting from this chart. Absolutely nothing below the horizon except for, I wish I could see this on a different chart, except for Pluto and Uranus, which look like they're in his fifth house. Yes. Nothing below the horizon at all. He's all up here, right? He's all uplift. And very little water in his chart. So Mr. Bezos is almost devoid of emotion. Neptune is about it. Not a lot of empathy in Mr. Bezos. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And the big squares come down from his midheaven to his ascendant. Let's see what my amateur astrologers in the chat room have to say about that. His ascendant's Aries. Pluto on his sun. Yeah, that's right. I wish Bezos would stop destroying my city. You're probably not the only one. He's a great conduit for possession. Probably already has been. He could pick up the slack for Paul Allen. Yeah, yeah. My whole hood bought out by Bezos and Vulcan. Wow. Well, he owns Whole Foods now too, right? He is creepy. Totally creepy. North Node in Cancer, fourth house. Yeah. So anyway, there's a little Bezos astrology for you. Pluto on his sun's interesting, huh? He'll either be completely wiped out or he's king of the world. There's no in between with that Pluto Sun conjunction. Where do you think it's going to go? He's going to have Saturn. That Saturn Pluto conjunction is going to be right on Jeff Bezos' sun in the 10th house. Wow. Wow, that's intense. He could lose everything or he could gain everything. What does Jasper have to say? Jasper, what do you think about Jeff Bezos? You think he's going to make it through this Saturn Pluto conjunction? He says no. See that? He said no. I know. I love you. I know. You're my buddy. Did you see that? I asked him. I waited. He said no. Jasper has spoken. That's right. No, Jasper's deep. Where do you think I get all my wisdom from? Are you kidding me? Right here, man. He's a channel. He's right here. That's where it's coming through. Right there. Jasper, good boy. Jasper is an oracle. I'm telling you right now. Jasper sees stuff. Like, you know how cats will look around and go, to do that thing? He does that. He'll see things float around the room. He's alive. He's awake. He's aware. Yeah. All right, let me get on out of here, boys and girls. What is his North Node? Jasper's North Node? Well, it's in Leo. Can't you tell? I'm getting out of here. I'll be back Saturday night for the live stream. Maybe we'll get into Bezos' chart on the live stream. Wouldn't that be fun? He pushed out local vendors from Whole Foods. Yeah, Bezos is evil. Come on, let's face it. Let's face it. Yeah, Elon and Bezos. Elon's a Cancer, so they're opposites. They're opposites. It'd be interesting. All right, Jasper, you got my attention. Hey, thank you very much. You've been listening to the Friday FARcast. Yeah, we're doing a webinar tomorrow. If you haven't signed up for it, it's going to be great. It's going to be me and Heather. We're going to be talking about Jupiter, and we're going to be talking about the nodes and eclipses and some Mercury retrogrades for all signs. We're going to be doing mundane astrology, personal astrology. It's on Saturday. No. It's on Saturday. It's the 20th. The webinar's on the 20th. Sunday night, I'll do the live stream. Sunday night, live stream, astrology, right? All right, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see you on Sunday night. For those of you attending the webinar, I'll see you tomorrow inside of Zoom. All right. Take care. Bye for now.